It used to be that to deny TV, junk food, mass medication, drugs, alcohol, and the libertine lifestyle was merely to state that one was not interested in that which the modern had to offer, the quick, the easy, the thoughtless pursuits marketed to empty minds. And maybe this is now simply a matter of repetition, but to deny these comforts is not seen as denying the extra, but it is seen as denying the norm, the standard, the default. If one does not have a TV, if one sleeps on the floor, wears the same clothes, eats simple meals, does not drink or do drugs, then that person is seen as an outsider. Such a fate is inevitable, and if you don't wish to become somewhat fringe, then this path isn't for you. But you wouldn't be here if you weren't already doubting all this. Who is your master? Comfort and normalcy, or your own will? First of all, when it comes to raw meat versus cooked meat, we could look at anthropology, we could look at chemistry, we could look at biology, we could look at germ theory and how Louis Pasteur was a liar, and how terrain theory is actually the more consistent theory when it comes to how bacteria interact with the world and what causes disease in humans. But I'd like to start somewhere else. See, why is it that when people watch my shorts, when they watch my raw meat meals, when they hear about someone eating raw chicken or raw beef, why is it that they react so badly? Well, yes, it is because society has told them that raw meat is dangerous. But they're eating sushi. And society doesn't say anything specific about sushi now, does it? But that's still raw meat. Does it say anything about carpaccio? Well, no, it doesn't. Steak tartare? Sometimes. But people are still serving it in restaurants, and society isn't really trying to ban that. This tells us that nutrition is largely conceptual. See, you could eat monkeys, you could eat kangaroos, you could eat elephants, you could eat rhinos, lions, tigers, jaguars, you could eat dogs and cats, some people do, and in a survival situation, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. See, if we take dogs as an example, if you look at a cow and a dog, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is you call this one something and you call this one something else. But if you look at their cells, they're not very different. The meat isn't very different other than taste. And when it comes to the muscle meat, the nutrition isn't really different. Yet we kill one of them and we don't kill the other. Why? Concepts. That's it. See, the problem isn't convincing someone that raw meat has health benefits. The problem is convincing them that it's safe. You see, you and society have a negative view of raw meat. You might not have if you're a very rare person, but most people do because we've been told that raw meat contains harmful bacteria that are killed when we cook the meat. First of all, you have to realize that I'm one of thousands of people who started eating raw meat and noticed amazing benefits, okay? So what I'm saying is, I don't want you to eat raw meat for the rest of your life. I don't want to convince you to eat raw meat. All I want is to create the possibility for you to explore this food group so that you can see what it does for yourself. And I can tell you that most people who have explored this possibility, despite what society says, have never gone back for obvious reasons. You've heard about E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, and Campylobacter. You've heard that they're dangerous. But are they? Well, first of all, you have to understand what they are. Are they actually bacteria in the sense that, well, they're individual types of bacteria, like red, green, and blue, like we divide red, green, and blue? No. That's wrong. If we look at Salmonella, Salmonella has thousands of different substrains. Salmonella isn't the type of bacteria, it's just a strain of bacteria. So what does this mean? Well, it means that if you say that Salmonella is bad, if you say that E. coli is bad, that means that you're saying that if there is one Irish person locked up for murder, that means that all Irish people are murderers, that they're all bad because one of them is in prison. That is the logic that you're using. Can we ground this analogy in reality? Because it might seem a little bit far-fetched that Salmonella could actually be good. Well, let's look at E. coli, which you deem dangerous because doctors have told you that. Well, let me tell you something. E. coli is one of the most important bacteria that are present in your colon. And even medical science agrees to that. This isn't something hidden. This is something that they agree with. Yeah, sure, they accept E. coli, but they don't tell you that Salmonella, Listeria, and Campylobacter, and many other dangerous bacteria are actually present in your body. You've got salmonella on your skin, it eats dead cells. The last obstacle is food poisoning, because when you see food poisoning happening over here and over here, well then what this guy is saying on your screen right now will seem like bullshit, because how do you explain food poisoning then? That's the big question here. There are two things that need to be answered here, and the first one relates to cooked food. Now, when it comes to food poisoning from cooked food, cooked meat, cooked milk, anything that you might find in the supermarket generally, except the raw, fresh, whole foods, that is subject to food poisoning. And that can kill you. Yes, that can kill you. If you eat moldy pasta, that will kill you. Why? Because you have to understand how this stuff works. The bacteria and the fungi and whatever might be on the food is eating the food and shitting it out. Now, if the thing itself is toxic and these microorganisms feed on it, their shit will be toxic. If this food is cooked food, then it contains toxins. It isn't natural, it isn't naturally occurring in nature, so the byproducts of these microorganisms will be toxic, and therefore they will cause disease in humans. Raw food, however, you don't see the same thing. Why? Because raw food has its natural bacterial flora that acts as protection from other microorganisms trying to take over the organic matter, that is the food. As an example, here's a raw milk experiment where they took raw milk and other types of milk that are processed, and they basically fermented them and saw what would happen. I think it was 3 weeks later, the raw milk, there was no problem with it whatsoever. There was no mold, no bacterial overgrowths. It was perfectly fine to eat. It was just very sour. If we look at meat as an example, there are many people who ferment meat. If you want an example of someone eating fermented meat on a regular basis and there not being anything wrong with them and they being very healthy, well then look at me, then look at Boban Simic, and look at Chris Erm. Well, how about raw food poisoning? Well, I'll tell you something. When it comes to salmonella outbreaks, last time I checked, when I checked the long list of salmonella outbreaks that you can find on, I believe it's the USDA's website, there wasn't any raw food there. None at all. It was either a processed food or it was a vegetable. Okay, but you're trying to avoid the issue here, Mr. Excellent Health. What about the cases where it's actually raw animal products? Well, I'll tell you something. It's going to be pollution. Again, doesn't matter, it's always pollution. Unless it's a cooked food that has been left outside for a while. How do I know this? Well, because bacteria are not responsible for their environment. Once you hear these wonderful words of the Prophet Excellent Health, you will never fear bacteria again. Listen to them again. Bacteria are not responsible for their environment. You don't realize that bacteria are exactly like you. You need to eat to survive. Bacteria are the same. Bacteria need to eat to survive. Bacteria eat what is in their environment. If the bacteria eat in a toxic environment, then their byproducts are going to be toxic. But if you've got raw milk and you've got the bacteria inside of the raw milk and they eat the raw milk, well then their byproducts are going to be healthy because all they ate was natural food. Now, with all of this in mind, I hope you understand that raw, high-quality animal products do not cause food poisoning. And this is coming from a person who has eaten raw chicken over 50 times, straight off the bone, is eating raw ground beef every day, is drinking raw milk every day, fermented raw milk even, who has eaten raw, fermented frozen liver, fermented for a month, frozen liver, that was frozen prior to it being fermented, that is, and that is generally considered more dangerous than fermenting fresh liver. Frozen, raw, fermented liver, 1 month fermented, eaten that without any problems whatsoever. And look at me 3 years later. Again, it's just a concept that it's dangerous. Once you get over it and you source your food correctly, then there's gonna be no problem at all. Now we arrive at the health aspects of raw meat. Now you're convinced that, okay, high quality raw animal products do not cause food poisoning, and so they're an open food group for you. Before we continue, we need to address cooked meat and evolution. You see, you might think that cooked meat is what made our brains grow bigger, but this is not the case. Why? Because if something made us evolve, then we wouldn't need it for a short period of time and then not need it again. It would become a dietary requirement. If there are people who can live off of raw meat and not cooked meat and have no problems with their brain, well then cooked meat cannot have been the thing that made us evolve. It must follow that the things that made our brains grow bigger are the things that you require today. B12 among other nutrients, dietary fat, cholesterol, choline, those are the things that led to our brains growing bigger. Generally, I compare raw meat and cooked meat to say that raw meat is healthier, but hear me out because I don't want to do that. That might be too far-fetched. You already know that raw milk is better than pasteurized milk. Anyone in the health community realizes this because there are studies showing the nutrient loss. There are studies showing the benefits of raw milk, and there are only studies showing the negative consequences of drinking pasteurized milk. Literally, if you look at the studies done on milk, you'll find that most of them are negative. And that's because they use pasteurized milk. And if you look at the studies on raw milk, they're always positive. And again, you've got more nutrients, you've got enzymes, you've got bacteria, blah blah blah. And we're the only animal who cooks milk. Okay, we don't cook the breast milk of Homo sapiens, of female Homo sapiens. We don't do that, thankfully. But we cook the milk of cows. Why? No reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever. And that is what most people in the health community, or anyone who can think about these manners in an intelligent manner, comes to conclude. Well, let me tell you this. If this is what you believe about raw milk and pasteurized milk, if you believe that raw milk is superior, if you trust the data, if you trust the nutrient loss, if you trust the bacteria, if you trust all of this, if you're health conscious enough to see this, then why aren't you seeing that we're not talking about pasteurization, we're talking about cooking in general? If this is how we view raw milk and pasteurized milk, then why have any double standards? Why not realize that cooking itself will have these effects on food and nothing else? What effect did cooking have on the milk? Did it denature the protein and make it easier to digest? No, it didn't. Raw milk is more easy to digest. That's it. Why wouldn't the same thing apply to meat? Well, of course it does. Of course it applies to meat. And that's why the people who eat raw meat don't go back to eating cooked meat, because their body tells them, well, okay, now we've stored information on this certain meal that you ate, and now we know that this thing, well, we can do more with it than the cooked meat, so we will tell you to eat raw meat. And now sometimes, if you're not used to raw meat, that won't happen. And sometimes, if you're dealing with a certain disease that has detoxification as a central theme, and you want to stop detoxification, then eating cooked meat can be an alright thing. Again, you have to be strategic, and you have to look at your life situation and how you want your symptoms to play out, how you want your detoxification to play out. But still, when it comes to overall superiority on all levels, raw meat is going to be the winner. Again, if you like this video and you want more details on all of this, if you're very interested in this, if you listened to this video and you felt, wow, I really enjoyed listening to this, well then you can get my book. Again, it's the only one of its kind. It's the only book that can teach you about the core principles of health, the things that govern health. And you would also be supporting the channel. The more people get the book, the more people I have helped, and the more I feel inspired to make these videos so that people can be helped. Now, when it comes to help, I'm not actually the one helping anyone. You're the one helping yourself. Remember that. You're the only one who can help yourself. I'm not doing anything for you. I'm just providing a little framework for you to do stuff from. With that said, good job on finishing the video. You have a really good attention span and I'm proud of you. Go and achieve excellent health. I know you can do it.